poor wife supported her husband through his darkest days. But when he became rich, he called her a burden and left her. They say a woman's love is tested not when a man has nothing, but when he finally has everything. This is the story of Elena Foster, a nurse from Newark, New Jersey, who believed love was about sacrifice. When her husband, Marcus, lost his job and his health, she carried him, paying rent, cooking from scratch, praying over bills, and believing in his dream when no one else did. She never complained, even when she skipped meals so he could eat, because she thought one day, all the struggle would make sense. One day, they'd sit in a big house and laugh about the nights they slept without power. And one day, that dream came true. Marcus made it. He became everything they once prayed for. Money, cars, investors, success. He had it all. But with success came something Elena never saw coming. Pride, distance, cruelty. The man who once held her hands and said, "You're my reason," began to see her as a burden. Until the day he left her with nothing. But what Marcus didn't know was that life had a strange way of flipping the script. Because this story doesn't end the way he expected. Shame on you, Marcus. I stood beside you when you had nothing, and now you're calling me a burden? People like to talk about wealth, investments, financial freedom, life insurance, all of that. But nobody ever talks about the woman who held the roof up before any of that existed. My name is Elena Foster, and for 12 years I was Marcus's whole support system. Wife, nurse, best friend, unpaid accountant, unpaid therapist, unpaid everything. I met him in a small one-bedroom apartment in Newark, New Jersey. He was 27, exhausted and drowning. His delivery job barely covered rent. His credit was broken. He had medical debt, and the stress was eating him alive. He used to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to drive packages just to keep collectors off our backs. "Baby, I'm sorry," he told me one night, head in his hands. "You didn't sign up for this." "Yes, I did," I said. "I said for better or worse." "This is worse. We'll live through it." When the landlord banged on the door threatening eviction, I was the one who walked downstairs in my scrubs and talked him down. When Marcus's car insurance lapsed, I paid it. When his back gave out and he couldn't work for a week, I picked up double shifts at the urgent care clinic. I didn't complain. I believed in him. Marcus had this dream, a logistics startup, courier management, fleet routing, contracts, software. He said, "One day I'll build something real. I'll take care of you. I swear to God, Lena, you'll never worry about money again." I used our little savings, the money I was keeping for emergencies, and helped him file the LLC. The first investor meeting he ever took, I ironed his only good shirt. The first pitch deck, I stayed up proofreading his numbers till 2 a.m., whispering, "Don't quit." Back then, it was still we. Before he learned how to say I. It started with one phone call. Marcus had been sending out proposals for months. Most ignored, a few politely declined. Then one afternoon, while I was folding laundry in our living room, he burst through the door, eyes wide, phone in hand. "Elena," they said yes. "The courier company in Trenton wants to partner." For a moment, all the exhaustion melted away. We held each other and cried, not because of the money, but because finally, all those sleepless nights meant something. I made dinner that night, cheap spaghetti with a can of sauce, but it tasted like victory. We laughed about how one day, we'd replace the folding table with a real dining set. From that point, things began to move. Marcus worked days and nights, designing routes, coding, meeting clients. I barely saw him, but every time he called, his voice was alive. "It's happening, Lena. I told you we'd make it." I still worked my nursing shifts, still paid bills, still prayed over our finances. But I didn't mind, because for the first time in years, hope felt real. What I didn't know was that success, the thing we prayed for, would also become the wedge that tore us apart. Success came quietly at first, then all at once. Marcus's small contract in Trenton led to 2 more in Philadelphia, then an investor from New York. Soon, his startup was officially registered and checks started coming in. It was everything we'd prayed for, and yet, something changed. He stopped asking me to proofread his emails. He stopped waiting for me to get home before eating dinner. Some nights, he'd stay out late for networking events, coming home with a smell of cologne that wasn't his. "Marcus," I said one night, You're working so hard you're forgetting to rest, to be home. He looked up from his laptop. Lena, you don't understand business. This is how people get ahead. You want me to stay broke forever. That hurt. I said nothing, just turned away, pretending to fold towels. Soon, his phone started buzzing with names I didn't recognize. Women from PR firms, event planners, investors' assistants. He'd answer in a tone I'd never heard. Confident, charming, polished. My husband was changing right before my eyes. And for the first time, I wondered if the man I'd built up from nothing was starting to forget who helped him build. The first time I met her was at his company's launch event. Marcus had rented a rooftop venue in Manhattan. Champagne glasses, LED lights, photographers, the whole show. I wore the same navy blue dress I'd worn to his first investor dinner because it was all I could afford. She walked up to us like she owned the night. Tall, elegant, red lipstick, the kind of confidence that comes from privilege. You must be Elena, she said with a polite smile. I'm Vanessa, Marcus's public relations manager. Public relations manager. The words tasted sour in my mouth. Throughout the evening, I watched her hover, adjusting his tie, whispering in his ear, laughing at jokes I'd never heard. Every time I tried to get close, she was already there. When we got home, I finally asked, "Who is she really, Marcus?" He sighed. "You're being insecure again, Lena. She's part of the team. Don't embarrass me." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the city lights flickering through our blinds. I remembered the nights he'd cry on my lap, begging God for a chance. Now he had everything. And suddenly, I didn't recognize my husband anymore. It happened on a Sunday morning, the day his words cut deeper than any betrayal ever could. I was cooking breakfast, the same way I always did when he actually came home. He was sitting at the counter, scrolling through his phone in silence. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Lena, have you ever thought that maybe we've outgrown each other?" I froze, spatula in hand. Outgrown. I repeated. He sighed, setting his phone down. "You've been great, but the truth is, I need someone who fits where I'm going. You're still stuck in the past. You don't understand my world anymore." I stared at him, the man I'd carried through every storm, and felt the air leave my chest. "So what am I now, Marcus? A burden?" He didn't even look up. "You said it, not me." My knees went weak. For a moment, the room blurred. I wanted to scream, but all I could whisper was, "I was with you when you had nothing." He finally looked at me, cold and proud. "And now I have everything." That's when I realized money hadn't changed our lives. It had only revealed who he really was. 2 weeks later, I came home to silence. His closet half empty, the framed wedding photo gone from the dresser. There was no note, just a text. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I've moved out. The lawyer will be in touch." And that was it. 12 years of love, loyalty, and sacrifice ended with a message. I called his phone until it went straight to voicemail. Then I called again and again until the reality sank in. Marcus was gone. For days, I wandered through the apartment like a ghost. The bed felt too big, the coffee pot too loud. Even my own heartbeat sounded foreign. I went back to work at the clinic, smiling for patients while breaking inside. The nurses whispered behind my back. Everyone had seen the headlines. Marcus Foster, CEO of FleetLink Technologies, engaged to PR executive Vanessa Hayes. Engaged. The man who once couldn't afford rent now had a mansion, a Mercedes, and a new woman on his arm. But karma doesn't send warning texts. It shows up quietly, the same way pain once did. Patient, waiting, and sharper than ever. And Marcus was about to find that out. It started small, whispers in the business world, rumors of missing funds and broken contracts. I heard about it at the hospital cafeteria one afternoon when 2 EMTs were talking over coffee. "You hear about that FleetLink mess? Their investors are pulling out. CEOs facing fraud allegations," one said. I froze, my spoon halfway to my mouth. By the end of that week, the news was everywhere. Marcus's name was plastered across business channels, not for his success this time, but for corruption, tax evasion, and a lawsuit from one of his biggest partners. Vanessa, the woman he'd left me for, was nowhere to be found. They said she liquidated what she could and fled the country before everything collapsed. Marcus tried to hold it together, but within months, everything he built came crashing down. His investors backed out. His accounts were frozen, his properties seized. I watched from a distance, quiet, calm, no bitterness in my chest. Because pain has a strange way of maturing you. One night, I got a call. It was Marcus. His voice cracked through the phone. "Elena, I lost everything." I closed my eyes and said softly, "Then you finally understand how I felt when I lost you." It was raining the night he showed up at my door. I had just come home from a double shift at the clinic, exhausted, still in scrubs, when I heard the knock. When I opened the door, there he was. Marcus, soaked through, face hollow, eyes swollen from shame. "Elena," he whispered, "please don't shut the door." For a long moment, I didn't move. The man standing there wasn't the one I married or the one who left me. He was a stranger, stripped of pride, fortune, and arrogance. "What do you want, Marcus?" I asked quietly. He swallowed hard. I didn't know who I was without you. I thought money would fix everything. I was wrong." I looked at him, remembering the years of struggle, the betrayal, the silence that followed. "Do you know what it's like?" I said, my voice trembling. "To wake up every morning beside a man you no longer recognize, and still choose to love him anyway?" He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." The rain fell harder. For the first time in years, I saw Marcus without his armor. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I just felt peace. He stayed outside my door for nearly an hour that night, waiting for an answer I wasn't ready to give. Inside, I sat on the couch staring at the wedding photo I had once taken down but never thrown away. It was old, the frame cracked, the colors fading, but the memory still lived there. 2 kids in love, full of dreams and promises. I opened the door again and found him still standing in the rain. "Come in," I said softly. He stepped inside, dripping water onto the rug, eyes darting around like he didn't belong there anymore. And maybe he didn't. I made him tea, the same chamomile blend I used to give him when his back hurt from long shifts. He held the cup, shaking. "Elena, I don't deserve your kindness," he whispered. "No," I said. "You don't. But I'm not showing you kindness, Marcus. I'm showing you mercy." He looked at me, confused. "Mercy?" I continued. "Because hating you would keep me in the same pain you left me in. And I've healed too much to live there again." He nodded, tears mixing with the rain on his face. For the first time, Marcus had nothing to say. A year later, life looked different, quiet, simple, and finally peaceful. I had moved to a smaller apartment closer to the hospital, started teaching nursing students part-time, and even launched a small home health startup with a friend. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, built with clean hands, honest work, and lessons paid for in heartbreak. Marcus tried to rebuild his life. I heard he found a job at a mid-level delivery firm. Nothing like the empire he once had, but enough to survive. Occasionally, he'd send a message on holidays. "Hope you're well, Lena." I'd always reply, "I am. Thank you." One afternoon, while leaving the clinic, I saw him across the street, helping an elderly man load boxes into a van. He looked up, saw me, and froze. For a moment, time stopped. He smiled, small, regretful, grateful, and I smiled back. No bitterness, no anger, just peace. Because love had turned into wisdom, pain had turned into strength. And though he once called me a burden, I had become the woman who carried herself. Sometimes, God lets people break you, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you stronger than they ever imagined. They say time heals all wounds, but that's not true. Some wounds don't heal, they teach. Elena Foster learned that love without respect is charity, and charity without gratitude is slavery. She gave everything to a man who forgot who he was the moment he got what he wanted. But in losing him, she found herself. Because life has a strange way of balancing its books, not with revenge, but with revelation. Marcus lost everything he built with pride, while Elena rebuilt herself with peace. And in the end, that was the real victory. So to every woman who ever held a man through his storm, remember this: when he forgets your worth, don't fight to remind him. Just rise. Because one day, when the applause fades and the lights go out, the same man who called you a burden will remember you were his blessing.